So everyone has already seen and heard about the meeting between Trump and Putin. Now, Marco Rubio did an interview with Face the Nation, and he had a couple of questions that he had to answer because everyone's wondering, well, what is going to happen between these two, Russia and Ukraine, in regards to this war? How is it going to stop? Are there going to be any concessions that are going to be made? Is Russia going to request anything? Are they going to give up anything? Is Ukraine going to have to do as such, which is pretty much where they're leaning towards, which Ukraine is going to pretty much have to give up the entire kitchen sink, which is where they've been pushing for some time now. This is what Trump meant when he said that you don't have the cards. You don't really have a hand to deal in this, because Trump did kind of snatch all the leverage out from his negotiations by stating that he's not going to support Ukraine, he's not going to fund Ukraine, he's not going to provide them with any information, he's not going to provide them with any kind of weaponry. So now if you take all of that away, how do you expect to deal with the person that you're negotiating with if you've then taken away any type of leverage that you would have? So Marco Rubio now does this interview.
Good morning to you, Mr. Secretary.
Good morning. Thank you.
Vladimir Putin did not give President Trump the ceasefire he sought, and now Putin says the root causes of the conflict have to be resolved in a peace agreement. Isn't the root cause the fact that Russia invaded in the first place?
Well, ultimately, yeah. But I mean, what he means by root causes is this long historical complaints that we've heard repeatedly. This is not a new argument. He's been making this for a long time. And it's the argument that it's Western encroachment. I don't want to get into it. It's just so long. But the bottom line is that we're not going to focus on all of that stuff. We're going to focus on this. Are they going to stop fighting or not? And what it's going to take to stop the fighting. And what it's going to take to stop the fighting, if we're being honest and serious here, is both sides are going to have to give, and both sides should expect to get something from this. And that's a very difficult thing to do. It's very difficult because Ukraine obviously feels, harmed.
That's a wild argument to make, because isn't that complaint of Western encroachment, isn't that the exact same complaint from the Middle East? That they only attack because there's Western encroachment. They don't want Westerners supporting other regions that they consider to be hostile towards them.
And rightfully so, because they were invaded. And the Russian side, because they feel like they've got momentum in the battlefield and frankly don't care. Don't seem to care very much about how many Russian soldiers die in this endeavor. They just churn through it. So I think what the president deserves a lot of credit for is the amount of time and energy that his administration is placing on reaching a peace agreement for a war that's not a war that started under him. It's it's on the other side of the world. That said, I mean, it's relevant to us, but there are a lot of other issues he could be focused on. So tomorrow we'll be meeting with President Zelenskyy. We'll be meeting with European leaders. We just met with Putin. He's dedicated a lot of time and energy because he has made it a priority of his administration to stop or end war, stop wars or prevent them. And right now, this is the biggest war going on in the world. It's the biggest war in Europe since World War II. We're going to continue to do everything we can to reach an agreement that ends the dying and the killing and the suffering that's going on right now.
Well, I mean,
wait, hold on. So since when do you as the president not take on responsibility for where it is that you're currently at with your administration and what it is that's happening underneath your watch within the world? COVID didn't start under Biden, but it continued under Biden, and he got the flack of responsibility that he was supposed to take. The amount of people that say that he messed up the economy, well, it didn't start under him. There's many others that say that this whole thing could have been avoided, and the amount of deaths that happened could have also been avoided. So wherever it is that this situation is at, you have to then own it. You can't just continuously say, well, it's not our fault. It didn't start under us, so it's not really our problem. No, it's now yours. You made it part of your responsibility. Imagine you're a witness to a murder and you agree to testify if they were to guarantee your safety. They put you into witness protection. You have bodyguards at the front, bodyguards at the back until the day of the trial comes. And even afterwards, they're still going to protect you. Why? Because you're doing them a solid. You're a witness. You're probably scared, but you say, I will testify if you guys can guarantee my safety. Imagine the person that committed the crime shows up to the door of where you're now being housed in witness protection. They sneak in, you're screaming, hey, the killer is here. He wants to take me out. And all your bodyguards just say, well, there's nothing we could do about it. He needs to take an arm or a leg, or he needs to take something. I mean, you need to give him his pound of flesh. What am I talking about? Well, the situation is you have a little problem called the Budapest Memorandum, where Ukraine made the agreement that they will disarm their nukes, their deterrent. They'll disarm all of their deterrent if these other nations, such as the U.S., such as the EU, if they were to guarantee their safety, if they were to guarantee their protection, then they will disarm. They did their part, and then they were still attacked. So where does that really leave you? Are your guarantees that you're actually going to live up to your word as a nation, regardless of who's in charge? Are your guarantees rock solid? Or do they just fall apart with the next administration? If that's the case, Why should anyone trust you or try to do business with you or try to have any kind of contracts or agreements with you then? You would just be considered another nation that could just change their mind on a whim.
You know this well, how long these kind of diplomatic negotiations often take. President Trump was telling European leaders what was discussed was Putin demanding control of Donetsk, a region in the east that his forces do not fully hold. And the UK estimates that taking that full area could be as long as another 4 years. Putin also is demanding Russian be an official language in Ukraine and something regarding Russian Orthodox churches. Did the U.S. accept all of what Putin laid out at that table?
Probably.
The United States is not in a position to accept anything or reject anything because ultimately it's up to the Ukrainians. They're the ones that Russia has to make peace with.
Well, the president said he did come to
It's up to the
agreements.
Ukrainians to make these conditions.
This is probably why people were advocating for the Ukrainians to be there. It's called negotiation. They needed to sit down with a mediator. The mediator in this case would have either been the EU, but really in this case it was Trump. Trump just sits himself in the middle, Putin on one end, Vladimir Zelenskyy on the other, and then they talk. They both speak Russian. They could choose whatever language they want to. So they have their negotiation, their administrations. They discuss the terms of a proper ceasefire that both of them will lose something, but both of them will also gain something. The gain is in the ceasefire. The loss is Ukraine might say, hey, we want Crimea back. Or one crazy one that would probably never, ever happen. Ukraine could actually say, hey, you know what? We'll give you Crimea. However, we want our nukes back. Give us our nukes back. All of our nukes, because, you know, this whole Budapest memorandum thing, that was a load of, you know what, if you take these regions, we want all of our nukes back. In this kind of world, that type of proposition would never transpire. But it would be interesting, though. I can guarantee they would never attack again.
Well, the agreements were that we were going to try to do things like, for example, get a leaders meeting. We have to make enough progress so that we can sit down President Zelenskyy and President Putin in the same place, which is what President Zelenskyy has been asking for, and reach a final agreement that ends this war. Now, there were some concepts and ideas discussed that we know the Ukrainians could be very supportive of in that meeting. I don't think we're not going to negotiate this in the media. I understand that everybody wants to know what happened, but ultimately there are things that were discussed as part of this meeting that are potentials for breakthroughs, that are potentials for progress. We'll be discussing that more in depth tomorrow with our European allies, with the Ukrainians that are coming over. We'll be discussing all of these things because ultimately we do need to find areas where we're making progress and try to begin to, narrow the gap between the two sides. But there's a reason why this war has been going on for 3.5 years, and that is when it comes to the big issues here, there are still some big differences between both sides. Let's see how much progress we can continue to make. It's not been easy, but it's something the president's made a priority. Peace.
Okay, so then they do the official meeting between Trump and Zelenskyy. A bunch of other people all around from the EU, they all show up, probably so that they don't have a recap of what happened earlier in February.
I guess the number is well over $300 billion. That was under Joe Biden, a corrupt politician, not a smart man, never was. By the way, go back 40 years, he was not a smart man 40 years ago either, but now he's in particular bad.
You made a promise to defend a nation that had been attacked. They have to then own up to their part of the contract and lend out support. It's either that or you get directly involved in a full-out war, which I don't think anyone wants.
This was done by a corrupt administration that shouldn't have been in, and frankly, if the right results of the election were given, if I were president, this war would have never taken place, and he would have been very happy because he would have liked to have seen. I mean, they went through hell. He went through hell. This war would have never happened, and the people that were killed, a couple of million people, a lot of people with soldiers and everything else, and the people
I can guarantee Putin told him that.
other areas and other countries because of what's happened, none of that would have happened. And I'm just saying that he was a horrible president, whether it was the borders or this. He was just a horrible, corrupt president.
Mr. President,
You want to
I can. Thank you so much. So first of all, we
Nice suit.
have possibility now to buy weapon from the United States. We are thankful for this program and this opportunity. We are thankful for Europe. They pay for this, and through NATO program, for example, Pearl and etc. We have some programs where we can have some money to finance this, and this is a part. I think it's not a part for the war.
They're going to be utilizing $100 billion from what some of the reports say to buy American weaponry Which in their case would actually be pretty good, because if they don't have to rely on some of the weapons that are sent, they can strategically determine what it is that the weapons that are needed, and then they could purchase those weapons as needed. I wonder if this would then remove some of the restrictions that they would have, where some of the other allied nations would tell them, don't use these weapons.
And to defend us, it also will be a part for security guarantees, to strengthen our army, to rearm Ukrainian army. This is very, very important. And it depends how much money we need to rearm. For example, the question of air defense, we spoke about it with President Trump, and I'm happy that we have now bilateral decisions and we work on it with production, American production. Nobody in Europe has so many air defense like Patriots, for example. We need it very much, and this is also about defending.
I think the good news.
Lies. Sorry, Zelenskyy. This is lies. I saw what you did with those drones.
We make the best military equipment in the world by far. You mentioned the Patriots. How good are they?
Systems.
We have systems. They're literally 100% foolproof, and it's really like shooting two bullets. You know, two bullets hitting each other in the air in a space like this. The chances, 100%. It's 99 to 100%. So we sell the equipment to NATO, and NATO does what, I don't know what the arrangement is that you have with, but I know that they want you to have the equipment. And we're getting the best equipment in the world, but they pay us for the equipment. Under Biden, it was just crazy what was going on. I believe the number is over 300. I think it could be $350 billion worth of equipment and money and everything else. And we've made more progress in settling this war in the last 2 months than they made in 4 years. This should have been settled a long time ago, but it should have never happened. Yeah, please.
Real quick.
By taking away their intelligence?
You pushed out on social media.
All right, Brian, go first.
You pushed out on social media about doing away with mail-in ballots and potentially electronic voting machines. Can you expand on that and how important that
Well,
is?
that's a very off-topic, just really quickly. Mail-in ballots are corrupt. Mail-in ballots, you can never have a real democracy with mail-in ballots. And we, as a Republican Party, are going to do everything possible that we get rid of mail-in ballots. We're going to start with an executive order that's being written right now by the best lawyers in the country to end mail-in ballots because they're corrupt. And you know that we're the only country in the world, I believe, I may be wrong, but just about the only country in the world that uses them because of what's happened, massive fraud.
He's actually just factually wrong. France uses mail-in ballots. The U.S., obviously. Canada uses mail-in ballots. Germany, Spain, Australia, India, Poland, they all use mail-in ballots. Greenland, for goodness sakes, uses mail-in ballots. How the heck are you going to make the claim that you're the only one that uses mail-in ballots? DBZ fans will know this reference. Trump actually reminds me of Android 20 when he just said this. When Android 20 was screaming out, "Stop this now," and Vegeta straight up told him, "No, you only want us to stop because you're losing." So he only doesn't want them because they don't seem to work in his favor. So if it doesn't seem to work in his favor, well, it must be corrupt then. It can't just be that it actually favors people that don't vote for you. If they don't vote for you, it must be corruption then, because everyone would vote for Trump.
Fraud all over the place. The other thing we want change are the machines. For all of the money they spend, it's approximately 10 times more expensive than paper ballots. And paper ballots are very sophisticated with the watermark paper and everything else. We would get secure elections. We'd get much faster results. The machines, I mean, they say we're going to have the results in 2 weeks. With paper ballots, you have the results that night. Most people, but most people, many countries use paper ballots. It's the most secure form. So between paper ballots, very, very important, paper ballots, and I think maybe even more important, the mail-in voting. We're going to end mail-in voting. It's a fraud. If you have mail-in vote, even Jimmy Carter with this commission, they set it up. He said the one thing about mail-in
what security guarantees do you need from President Trump to be able to make a deal? Is it American troops, intelligent equipment? What is it?
That's the question he wanted to hear. Vladimir Zelenskyy.
Really, it includes two parts. First, strong Ukrainian army. That's what I began to discuss. with your colleagues. And it's a lot about weapon and then people and training missions and intelligence. And second, we will discuss with our partners. It depends on the big countries, on the United States, on a lot of our friends.
And Mr. President, are you willing to commit American troops to that NATO-like protection in order to get President Zelenskyy to a deal today?
Well, I don't know if you define it that way, but NATO-like, I mean, we have people waiting in another room right now. They're all here from Europe, biggest people in Europe, and they want to give protection. They feel very strongly about it, and we'll help them out with that. I think it's very important. I think it's very important to get the deal done.
You've been involved with the peacekeeping in Ukraine since your first day in the administration. What would you say to the Ukrainian people right now who are suffering under the Russian attacks?
So in regards to that question that was just put out there, that was probably because hours before Zelenskyy had met with Donald Trump at the White House, you had this. Russian attacks killed 14 in Ukraine hours before Zelenskyy visits White House. Ukrainian officials said the deadly strikes were a further sign that Russia had no intention of halting hostilities. So tell me, what agreement was reached? Whatever your thoughts are, leave them in the comment section. If you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like, and I will see you again on the next one. Easy, y'all.